I'm not as ready as I thought I was. My microphone's goofed up here. Anyway, this is Doc with Doc and Lefty. Of course, Lefty is late. You know why? Because he's a liberal and they're never very responsible. Yeah, how'd you like that? Do I get a pow up on the screen for that one? Anyway, I like it when Lefty's not here so I can beat on him and not have to listen to him whine and drivel. Anyway, I want to say thanks to Ed for the lead in. I want to, I got to meet Jack Hatch out there, and funny enough, Hatch had to give Ed Fallon a ride home. And I told him, I said, listen, you should be riding your bike. It's a beautiful day out today. And Ed didn't seem to appreciate that kind of humor. Anyway, it was pretty interesting what they had to say. Jack was, what he said in the hallway is basically, with Common Core and DHS problems, if Branstad would come and talk and try to get out there and try to communicate and fix these problems, he'd be more than happy to talk with them. Now, I know I'm not in the habit of being nice to liberals. However, I will tell you, working in the human services industry, Jack Hatch has done a lot for the kids that I work with and for. He does a lot for youth homes in Mid-America. He gets a lot of funding done for a lot of these services that these children desperately need. So that is my one good thing I'm going to say about a liberal today. Now that we have our completely irresponsible Lefty in here today, we'll start with him. Lefty, how you doing? By the way, the weather's beautiful out today.
You gotta love it. Now, I'm sorry I'm late. I had just a great lead-in for you this time around. You want to hear it?
Oh yeah, I'll take it.
Even though, or maybe I should save it for next week.
Have at it, man.
All right. I was going to say, when I bring the show in and do the whole thing, that and with me as always, the guy who keeps the Al Michaels Lake Placid call on a permanent loop in his head and sleeps wrapped in the American flag, Dr. J. Patrick Bertroche. Doc, how's it going?
Oh, it's going great.
See, that would have been good if I hadn't been running late.
Good. So you've been watching the Olympics at all?
No, not 1 minute.
Oh, man, you're missing some of the best drama ever.
Not one single minute. I don't have regular TV anymore.
Well, that's just silly. Do you have cable?
No.
Dish?
No.
What do you do?
We stream Netflix and Hulu over the internet. That's it.
Well, you should have plenty of time to get topics ready for the week then.
What do you?
I'm just saying. I'm just saying. You're not even watching TV at home.
Not even watch TV. Nope. We watch TV at home. Just we don't watch what's going on right now.
Yeah, but then you have to get. See, you can't just use the remote to click. You have to get up, go to the computer, change it around.
Nope.
Really?
Smart TV. It's fantastic.
I'm so old.
The age we live in.
Anyway, hey Frank. Now I'm going to tell you, I've been watching curling. Has been the thing I've been watching.
Okay.
And curling is, I don't know what it is. It's like shuffleboard on ice. And I can see how the Canadians dreamed this stuff up because I could see them sitting around drinking going, hey, listen, let's shove this rock down the ice and see if we can knock somebody else's rock off.
Well, I guess it's been something that they've done for a really long time. This isn't new for the Canadians.
No, and I mean it's really quite fascinating to watch, especially a guy like me that, is in quite a bit of that enjoys the psychological aspects, So it's been a lot of fun watching. The one disappointment I have with this is that the Swedish curling team does not sound like the Swedish chef from the Muppets. Now, Frank, do you have that? There you go. There you go. I think that's enough of that clip. Thanks a lot, Frank. They don't sound like that. I'm really kind of disappointed. My entire life, I believed Jim Henson and the Swedish chef. In fact, that was the one thing that got us through the bus ride from my house to school is trying to do the Swedish chef. Anyway, they don't really sound like that. That has been my one disappointment watching curling. The other thing is, I was kind of hoping, Lefty wouldn't have his head buried in the sand when it comes to, national pride and watching the Olympics. However, I shouldn't be surprised. The Americans in ice dancing, not only did they get the gold, they set 2 records getting it. And what's even better is they beat the French. And, that's always good news whenever we beat the French. So that's been going on. It's been quite beautiful. We're going to be back right after the break. You're listening to Doc listening to Doc on Doc and Lefty, on my own show, on webcast1live.com. We're here every Tuesday from 6:30 to 7:30 p.m. Our guest tonight was going to be Jeannie Munson. She is a DHS hater extraordinaire, and I figured I'd have her on since she has multiple lawsuits going against the DHS. And since that's going to be our topic tonight, I figured she'd be a great guest. She's going to be here in about the next 5 or 10 minutes. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. We'll be back right after the break.
Petrosh and Associates, how can I help you?
Petrosh and Associates will provide you with a friendly, caring, and confidential place to find help for mental health concerns. We are ready for your call. Our doctor, Dr. J. Patrick Petrosh, provides a full range of psychiatric services for children, adolescents, and adults in a forthright and informative manner while maintaining a casual, comfortable, and relaxed atmosphere.
All across America, there are countless numbers of people struggling with addiction and other life-controlling issues. Probably someone you know and love. There is a way out. There is hope. Transformations Treatment Center in Delray Beach, Florida, has a unique approach to substance abuse treatment. Call now and ask about our Guaranteed Success program or log on to transformationstreatment.com. Transformations. Change your life. Change your relationships. Transform your world.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. Thanks for sticking around through this first very doc-heavy segment. I know that most of the folks out there would appreciate a more, I don't know how you would say, non-doc-heavy segment usually. However,
hey, now he got Doc and Heavy into this conversation at least twice. And I want everybody to know I'm down at least 19 pounds since the end of December.
No, you're looking pretty svelte there, my friend.
I am. I wouldn't say svelte. Frank is svelte.
Yes.
I mean, and stylish. I still have my old, I have my shirt, I have my glasses, and that's what I have.
And your American flag. I'm down about
and my American flag.
I'm down around between 6 and 7 since the last 3 weeks.
You're down what?
About
between 6 and 7? I noticed it. I just thought you'd shaved your beard a little bit.
Just so it's starting to be noticeable just a little bit.
That's good because at one point, man, you were kind of studly looking.
I used to be.
Would almost make Frank gay, I think, at one point.
Well, I don't. I don't think so. That doesn't seem to be.
Oh, he's blushing back there.
That doesn't seem to be a choice that he'd be willing to make.
No, he wouldn't. I'm just saying that's how good looking you were.
Anyway, we are in the midst of a legislative session that I think in the next couple of weeks, I believe that everybody has to have their bills in to be debated. And that might have actually been today. I think the deadline was in the next day or two, but don't quote me on that. And that's essentially is like if in the first 6 weeks or so of the legislative session, you don't have your bills in, they won't be debated. You'll have to wait until the next session. Except for taxing, spending, and other sort of housekeeping, state business stuff. So your abortion bills, your veterans bills, your LIHEAP bills, those sorts of things need to be on the table in committee right now, or they're not going to get to the floor. Yeah. So one of those bills that's in the works right now is this bill to reopen. Or to close, I think, actually, or to reform the girls' home at Toledo. Now, this.
They had last week. They had sued to keep it open.
Well, here's what happened.
All right, fill us in.
We know that we talked about this very briefly right after the whole thing happened. You have a history of you've been connected to the girls' home in Toledo in your professional capacity. You have seen young ladies that have stayed there. You've seen young men who've stayed there over the years. That's correct.
I can't say who I've seen. But yeah,
you have seen patients there. You are familiar with how it works. Yes. You're familiar with the culture out there. You know about the town, and you know about the home's role in the town. You're experienced. I'm just setting you up as you're the experienced guy here.
Oh my God, I'm the expert, Frank.
Right.
I hate being the expert.
So the governor found out, or a report came through the and I'm going to fudge the name of the organization, Iowans Disabilities Organization, and I can't remember the entire the entire name of the organization. I apologize for that. Came out with a report, a pretty damning report of the conditions at that youth home in Toledo. People kids being kept in isolation, improper holds, all kinds of nasty kinds of things.
Hang on a second. Hey, Frank, you all right in there? All right. Lefty's talking. There.
Aha.
There you go.
Hey.
I don't know what he was watching, but it looked. I have seen that very same look on your face when you used to live across the way from me.
Oh, what?
Sitting there watching your computer all the time.
Oh, sure. So when this report comes out, Governor Branstad, through unilateral executive action, closed it down. Said, we got to protect these kids. We got to close it down. They got to go elsewhere. A lot of the girls who were there went right home because they were ready to either age out or they had received maximum benefit, and he closed it down. A few legislators, I believe they were Democratic, said, hey, look, Governor, you passed a budget that provided funding for this. You've directed us to allocate the funding for this home. You can't now just close it unilaterally. It has to go through the legislative process, which a district court judge here I think in whichever county Toledo's in, that's another thing I didn't look up, sided with the legislators, the Democratic legislators, saying, yeah, we have to reopen it. And so that's been the tussle. And there's now bills on the floor in the legislature to either close it permanently, reform it, do something else with the system. And what I find interesting about the whole thing, other than, this is one of those kind of moments in Iowan policy it's not getting a super ton of big headlines, but it's getting its fair amount and could have real effects for young people in this state who have to go through the court system. Is it's becoming a partisan issue, which it's just,
and it shouldn't be.
It shouldn't be, but it's strange that it is, because you would expect that Democrats normally would see this as we got to shut this whole thing down. We've got to reform this. And they would take advantage of this lapse in maybe accountability and put it on the governor's doorstep. The one big black mark on his administration, that these were going on and nobody knew about it, right? You'd think that they would do that. We got to close it down. We got to look at that. We got to study the problem. We got to whatever. No, it's the governor saying we got to close it down, and the Democrats saying we got to keep it open, and members of the governor's own party are saying that we got to reopen this place because we're going to put these kids.
Well, and that's been part of the problem. I mean,
and I know that you were more inclined to keep the place open.
Well, you have to keep in mind. Don't get me wrong. You shouldn't be keeping kids in seclusion and isolation for a year. You shouldn't have to. You shouldn't do that. Like we've talked about before, Toledo is a place for kids that aren't good. I mean, there are evil kids, and a lot of these kids are evil up there. Doesn't mean you should be throwing them in the hooscow like that. I can tell you that what has happened at Toledo would never, ever happen at my facility. Ever. It doesn't. You know why? Because they come in and have inspections. That's part of the problem with the system we have. If you're private, and this is why, Republicans say we should privatize this. If you're private, you have to go through all kinds of credentialing. People come in and they look at you all the time. Magellan, who runs Medicaid, looks at you all the time. The Medicare people, because a lot of these kids are on Medicare as well, come in and take a look at you. They inspect you. They look at what you do. They look at how you control your environment. That's what they do. And the state has no such obligation. None of the state facilities are required to be reviewed or licensed or anything along that line. Now, I can tell you exactly what Governor Branstad was thinking. It's going to be an election year. That's going to be an issue. This thing is horrible, and it's happening on my watch. Mm-hmm. I'm done with it. Boom, out. Well, and that's just what happened. And the problem is, and the trick is that problem has existed since the first time he was governor. It existed all the way back when they first did it. That's how we used to do things. The state had no reason to change, and privately we had all kinds of reasons to change. Now it's time for a break. We're going to come right back. Lefty is chomping at the bit to say something. Thanks for tuning in. You're listening to Doc and Lefty on webcast1live.com. We'll be back right after the break. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast 1 Live.
Get away from us, you mean old credit card. We don't have any more money. We're in trouble now. Save us! Help! Somebody save us! Somebody help! Help! Save us!
Hi, I'm Tom Coates from Consumer Credit of Des Moines. If your credit card's a little too animated, give us a call.
Hooray! We're saved! Consumer Credit! You're our hero!
If Tom Coates from Consumer Credit of America was your personal webmaster, Tom would filter out all bad debt emails. If Tom was your mailman, you'd never get any debt reduction junk mail. If Tom Coates was a lineman, he'd block any phone calls offering to reduce your credit card debt.
Hi, I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of America, and we're still your best choice for credit counseling. We're local, we're accountable, and we can do more. You make the call when the time's right for you.
When it comes to competition, there really is none for Consumer Credit of America.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. We're talking a little bit about the system. And I say that with a very obvious capital S, because one of the biggest systems in our state. You have education. That's a big system in Iowa. You have ethanol, huge system in Iowa. You have farmers, even like that aren't necessarily corn growers or soybeans or whatever. Big agriculture is a huge system in Iowa. And you have the Department of Human Services. Inside the government is a gigantic bureaucracy in this state. And one of the things that they run, and I know how much you love bureaucracies, and we're going to get into that shortly. But one of the things that DHS, overseen by the Bureau of Inspections and Appeals, the whole court system as well, and the individual county attorneys that work with them, are these different homes around the state. You got Eldora for boys, you've got Toledo for girls, and there's other ones that you know better than I do that I can't come up with off the top of my head. And Toledo was this big scandal last year, and we're discussing some of the fallout of that now that there's legislation to reform the system. Now, Governor Branstad appointed a commission to study the report that came out from the Iowans Disabilities Organization that broke the news basically last year, and is chaired by Jerry Foxhoven, who is the director of the Drake Legal Clinic, a juvenile guy. He was my law school advisor, my student advisor when I was in law school. I've known the guy since 2007, and he is just a monumental child advocate figure in this state and has been for 25, 30 years. This is a guy whose very name is synonymous with child welfare in this state. And his commission came out with, there a series of recommendations, but the big three that they found when they studied the problem and read the reports were, one, you had boys at this facility. This is a facility for young women under the age of 18, and there were boys there as well. And he said that was a huge problem. That seems like a common sense solution right there. Another one is that there were what we call, and I do a lot of this work myself. I do a lot of juvenile work in Polk and Marion County especially, and we call them China cases, child in need of assistance. And they were keeping China girls, young girls who were going through this the child in need of assistance program, which meant that they had committed no crime, but that something went wrong in their family life where their parents either failed to something where DHS had gotten involved, and those girls were not safe with their parents anymore or their relatives, whoever had custody of them. They were being housed with delinquent girls who, if they had been 18 or older, would be in the adult criminal justice system. He said that had to change. You can't have girls who had done nothing wrong being housed and being treated the same exact way as girls who had committed crimes. And the third big one was then there needed to be a reevaluation of the system as a whole, because if Toledo had shut down, and the interesting thing about this commission was that that Professor Foxhoven ran, was that it didn't recommend closure of the home in Toledo. It was silent on that issue, but said that if the governor and the legislature decided that closure was the most appropriate thing, then we needed to look at the landscape and see whether or not, or if I should let me back up. If those girls were, if we split the system up and girls were going to different facilities rather than a catch-all in the Toledo house and the campus there, then we have to see whether or not it was viable to keep that place open. Because certainly when they looked at the commission, the girls that were still there after the folks went home, who after the place closed, the girls who couldn't go home, there's like, I think he said on the news the other day, there's maybe 15 or so girls still at the facility, and obviously that's not enough to run the facility. Now, Doc, what do you, I know that our special guest has just joined us, but before we get to her, what do you think about those three? Those are the big three, the three pillar recommendations that the commission came out with. You got to separate the genders. You got to get the China kids out there, and you have to maybe reform the system if you're going to split it up. Well, I think I think all those things make sense. The one thing that they left off is, great, all that sounds good. I'm all for it. Nobody in this room is going to disagree with that. The trick is they need to have regular inspections, number one. Number two, you have to make sure that everybody meets the same criteria to be able to take care of these children. There's been in some facilities I've been in where the nurse has been from the VA and has no experience, none, in child and adolescent psychiatry. There's a lot of other reforms that really need to take place. Those things are a great place to start. It'd be like if you're going into a restaurant full of cockroaches. Well, get rid of the cockroaches, make sure they stay out, and make sure your food's fresh. Well, those are all common sense things. And if the state had to follow the same kind of mandates the private facilities had to follow, this wouldn't even be an issue. All these things would have been already taken care of commonsensically. Part of the problem with separating the boys and the girls, which I think is a good idea. There has to be a way to do that, but there are private facilities that do this. Orchard Place is the one that comes to mind immediately because it's here in Des Moines. Vera French and Annie Wittenmeyer over in Davenport, they have boys and girls together. Part of the problem with our system is a lot of these girls all have a place to go. There are far more beds for girls in this spot. There are far fewer offenders who are girls. And that's true, but we're not talking about just offenders. Right. All right. And the problem is all these kids need a place to go, but the male beds are very, very low. And in fact, I believe, and I may be mistaken, but I believe my facility, Youth Homes Mid-America, is the only one in Iowa that's strictly boys. And they do house in their independent living program some girls. So there's I think there's a, I can't remember what it's called. Eldora. Eldora is boys home, but they also allow girls up there. That's the training school. But there's the campus in Fort Dodge. I know that's a boys. That's more of a it's almost a military school. I've got a client up there right now, and I think that's all boys, but I can't remember that name either. I also don't. I think it's private, so that could be a part of it. And part of the thing about the Democrats getting all bent is when this whole thing came up with Toledo, one of the big recommendations was, well, let's privatize this stuff. Let's have it go private. And anytime you talk about privatizing anything with the Democrats, they all throw a fit. Well, the bottom line is I can tell you privately, the facilities are much better than any state facility you go to. The Youth Homes of Mid-America, and that's the one I know, so I'm going to talk about that. Their driving force is they're not going to give up on the kid. They're not going to. And the problem is every state facility, they'll reach maximum benefits. Oh, they reach maximum benefits, we're going to kick them out. And the bottom line is
youth homes in Mid-America, because they are private, are able to sit there and keep these kids even when the state isn't paying for them like they should be. So, that's the thing I look at.
Well,
if the state, if we would privatize a lot of this stuff, they would have inspections. I mean, every 6 months we're having to go be inspected by somebody, verifying that everything is going well. And, youth homes has led the charge on getting away from isolation and seclusion rooms. And I can tell you that, youth homes takes the worst of the worst. When these people have run out of every other option, they go to youth homes. So it's not like we can't control these kids, but you have to have the training and the facility for it, and the state simply doesn't require that.
Well, I mean, that's not really all that accurate. Folks or kids at all kinds of facilities reach maximum benefits all the time. There are kids that age out. There are kids who are there. I've got a client's son who's been in Dubuque since 2000. I think it was Christmas 2012. He's now 11, I believe. He will either get into a group care foster home, or he will just he'll have to go home to his dad or something, because the school has said, look, we're happy to keep him, but we're getting no more funding for him because he's reached maximum benefit. We can't do anything for him. And this child, Doc, it's not his. He's got behavioral delays. He's got all kinds of the classic sorts of psychological gamut of problems that you'd have in a misbehaving child with those sorts of issues. He'll never get. There's no getting better. They've done as well as they can. They can't be faulted for that. And he has to go someplace else. And that's where a lot of the state facilities come in, like Toledo. What Professor Foxhoven said in the report the other day was it became a place of last resort, where these girls were being sent there from all these other facilities around the state because they couldn't do anything more with them, and that's what the state does.
Well, yeah, I get that. It wasn't necessarily a place of last resort, because I'm one of the facilities, place of last resort, and two, if it really gets to be last resort, one of the things that we do is we ship them out of state, which is another problem with DHS.
That is a huge problem, yep.
A huge. So we're going to be back right after this break. We have Jeannie Munson with us. She is I don't know how to characterize it except being a DHS hater extraordinaire. So we're going to get her opinion, talk to her about her story and her struggles with DHS, which, honest to goodness, I believe every word she says, because it's the same struggle I've had to go through. And privately, Lefty has told me about some of his struggles to protect his people. And so we'll be back right after the break, listening to Doc and Lefty on webcast1live.com. We're here every Tuesday from 6:30 to 7:30 p.m. Thanks for tuning in.
Hey, psst. Let me let you in on a little secret. You ready? Always try to do business with people, not places, especially if you seek honest Christian business people. And when it comes to my car, I really need to trust who's working on it. Now, my family is so blessed. A few years ago, we found a family-owned automobile repair shop that operates as a Christian business also. Open, honest, reliable, trustworthy. It's AMCO on Hickman Road in front of Kmart, and it's a family-owned Christian operating business. This family treats your car as if it was their car. Everything from oil changes to transmission repair and everything in between. So the next time you feel the need to be at peace with your choice of who you can trust with your car, give AMCO on Hickman a chance to serve you. And tell them Max sent.
Welcome back, everybody. We have breezed through the first half hour, and it always seems like, I was worried. Once again, I was a little bit concerned. I was running late, and I was thinking to myself, gosh, maybe that first half hour is going to be tough, but we have so much to talk about because we're dealing with the massive organization that is the Department of Human Services in Iowa. And we're with a special guest here, Jeannie Munson. Ms. Munson is someone who has a long history dealing with the Department of Human Services in Iowa, and is someone that has graciously agreed to come on the show this the second half hour and talk about some of her experiences. So, Ms. Munson, thank you so much for coming. We really appreciate having you here. Why don't you tell the listeners a little bit about yourself?
Well, thank you for inviting me. I am a grandmother of 4 children that DHS took from me. I have a little bit of background about myself. I have 2 degrees. I work in IT for John Deere. I've been there 17 years. I think in my whole life I've had 3 jobs. You know, I've been a real self-sufficient person. The model citizen I considered myself. You know, I'm Christian, to raise my children and grandchildren in church. And so when DHS knocked on my door and said, do you want your grandchildren? We're going to take them from your daughter and do a China. I had no knowledge of DHS or how to deal with them. So I said, well, of course. Well, they split the 4 kids up and put 2 of them with the half-sister down in southern Iowa and left the other 2 with me.
Now, why did they do that?
They said that my daughter wasn't taking her oldest daughter to therapy.
Okay.
And so they were going to China her. So the orders was from DHS to me, from the worker, was to make sure that my daughter took Haley to therapy every week. Well, as a matter of fact, her exact words was, take the kids, she has to take all 4 kids to all of their appointments. Therapy, doctor, dentist.
Right.
I said, that's fine. And so for 9 months, my daughter did that. And during this time, DHS was they just weren't doing what I thought they would do for the mother. You know, they're supposed to be, they're supposed to work towards unification of the parent. But they never did. Matter of fact, they would come and sit in my house for an hour every week, the FSRP worker, and instead of going to see my daughter. It's like, guys, the kids are fine with me. You know, you need to be working with my daughter. But they really weren't. And when it was all said and done, I had the children for 14 months.
There's just the 2.
The 2 older ones.
Right.
And I had all 4 of them every other weekend.
Okay.
And then I would have them on vacation and stuff too. I'd have all 4 of them. And I wanted all 4 of them because I wanted to keep them together.
Right.
Because they were close. They'd been together. They'd lived with me previously, and they were very close.
Was there a dad in the picture?
The dad, one of them, there's 3 dads. And one of them, he's not in the picture now. He got deported. He was illegal.
Okay.
And then the other 2, they've been terminated.
Right.
So not really. There really wasn't a dad in the picture. And then when I started getting nervous around the 9th month, they was going to take him from me and not let me have him. So I hired an attorney because I also seen all the crooked things that DHS was doing and how they were twisting our words. And I complained because the 2 little ones down in southern Iowa weren't being taken care of like they should have been. And DHS didn't like that. And when it got right down to it, they just plain didn't like me. And I think that's really part of the reason why they took him. But and
this is all up here in Polk County?
Yes.
Okay.
All of it, yeah. And then they changed workers. The FSRP worker, the social worker, the GAL, they changed them all. Well, when the new ones come on board, they didn't know the story. So the GAL went to school and found out from the school that my daughter had been there on Friday to pick up her daughter to take her to therapy. And that GAL threw a fit because my daughter was taking her to therapy, which she was only doing what she was told to do.
Right.
So she threw a fit. She called the worker. The worker called me. They're all throwing this big fit. And I'm kind of laughing. I'm like, guys, this was the order. Well, they took away Janelle's rights to transport the kids.
Okay.
Because of that. And matter of fact, to that point, she was back to only supervised visits. And they took away her rights. She got really upset and ended up having an asthma attack over it. And I'm still telling DHS, I'm like, she's doing what you told her to do. And they wouldn't admit to it. They never ever, not once did they ever apologize for making the mistake. And they just ridiculed us more for that. Well, you know, I always thought that the government would never do this to me because why would they? I'm a good person. You know, why would the government step in and take my grandchildren from me?
Right.
It didn't make sense. But what I found out is nothing that DHS does makes sense.
Well, so let me make sure that I have this straight. And just this is a pretty serious topic that we're talking about, and I just want to let everybody know that we haven't reached out to a representative of the department. We're here to discuss Jeannie's experience with DHS, and I have to say this is that this is something that I have come across in very isolated occurrences, and I don't want to let anybody think that we are making the claim this is the rule. This is a tragic story that we're discussing here, and these sorts of things are what need to be fixed, in my opinion, with DHS. But and maybe Doc can speak, for himself. I'm speaking for me. I don't want it to be suggested that this is what the department just does to people.
Let me break in a second.
Yeah.
This has been my experience with DHS. You have some good workers out there. Don't get me wrong. DHS has good workers. The problem is they're few and far between, and the system that we have burns them out quickly, so that only the old rotten ones are left behind. I can't tell you how many times I've had to sit in my office while DHS springs the fact that they're going to terminate this parent's right in my office in front of me. They don't bother to tell me in advance. They don't bother to tell my patient in advance. They don't bother to tell the patient's parents in advance. They just come in here and say, this is the power we have and we can do it. So I understand Lefty is being much more politically practical than I am, but I will tell you, Jeannie's story is much more the rule than it is the exception. And with that note, I'm going to be back right after the break because I need to calm down. I get so mad listening to this stuff. We're going to be back right after the break. You're listening to Doc and Lefty on webcast1live.com. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. We'll be back to discuss this issue. And, hopefully, since have somebody try to come up with a solution to see what's going on. So that's what we'll be talking about right after the break. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in.
All across America, there are countless numbers of people struggling with addiction and other life-controlling issues. Probably someone you know and love. There is a way out. There is hope. Transformations Treatment Center in Delray Beach, Florida, has a unique approach to substance abuse treatment. Call now and ask about our Guaranteed Success program or log on to transformationstreatment.com. Transformations. Change your life. Change your relationships. Transform your world.
Whether you're 10, 25, 50, 80 years old and beyond, everyone needs to live within their means. I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of America. For almost a quarter of a century, we've helped people of all ages learn to manage their personal finances to benefit them far into the future. When problems arise, we've got the experience you need to make those debt problems go away. Got financial problems? Call Consumer Credit of America.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. We're here with guest Jeannie Munson talking about her experience at the DHS, and I got to tell you that I hear a lot of this. I hear a lot of this kind of stuff, and I represent primarily parents of children. I've been a GAL a few times, but I represent primarily the parents and a lot of dads. Now, in a typical, and I say typical because you don't often see married couples going through the China process. It's one of those, they're either able to be a little bit more. You do sometimes. It's happened a few times, or where they're as good as married. It's the mom and the dad are still together, they're just not married. But it's often where the dads are in the picture sporadically, and that puts stress on the kids, where mom takes up with a boyfriend who's not good news, and the situations get really complicated. I'm not saying anything like that happened with you, but these parents, they get themselves into hot water when they don't do, quote unquote, comply with services, where they don't follow service requests, where they don't alleviate the quote unquote concern. And I kind of want to drill down a little bit deeper into what the exact concern is, because during the break you told me that they terminated on your daughter.
Right.
Probably because the kids couldn't be returned in the home within a year after the removal. The removal, you said, was because she wasn't taking the oldest one to therapy.
Yes, that was what they told me.
But the three other ones, the three other children, how did that affect them at all? I mean, what were the allegations? That she wasn't supervising them properly, that she wasn't caring for them properly? What were the specific allegations you remember?
Haley the oldest one had been molested.
Okay.
And so that's why she was going to therapy.
Right.
Another thing, she had been in the hospital for a week after that happened down at Lutheran.
Sure.
And so she was there for a week, and then she was supposed to be going to therapy, and sometimes Janelle just didn't have the time or the gas money to take her. So that was why they said they was taking them.
Okay.
Is what they told me.
So and then they couldn't they didn't return them within the year. The Iowa code lays out a year for older kids are older than 3 years old, to be returned to the custodial parent where they were removed from. That didn't happen. So I'm curious, one of the things that kind of makes me angry as an attorney is sometimes there's not a lot we can do. I've got clients that I've got a client who had a little baby, and the baby got removed because he was fighting with the mom and was accused of some pretty violent stuff, and they are looking to terminate him because they said, well, look, you need to at least get some mental health services. You got to do some things for yourself, got to get an evaluation at least, and he didn't do any of it. And you have 6 months, and he knew he had 6 months, right? So I have some arguments, but as an attorney, where I get frustrated is when the client doesn't do what they're requested to do, then DHS has nothing else to go on, right? Now, it sounds like your daughter was complying with the service request that DHS put in front of her. So why was the concern not alleviated to the best of your knowledge?
She didn't comply with absolutely everything.
Yeah.
But then they really didn't tell her what to do.
Mm-hmm.
You know, she went and took parenting classes. She'd done that on her own.
Right.
You know, and she was trying to a point. But and then when she asked, she just begged him for 6 more months.
Right.
I don't really think that it set in that she was going to lose her kids. I don't think she believed that.
Right.
And once it finally did sink in that they're going to take those kids away from me, then she was like, she begged them to give her 6 more months, you know, and they wouldn't do it. They took them right out a year.
Yeah, that's in the code too. There's a provision in the code that if the children can't achieve permanency, the court either has to recommend termination or return the kid or give a 6-month extension, and there has to be some evidence as to why that 6 months is more appropriate than termination. And I guess I wonder, how old were the children when this was going on?
They were 2, 3, 5, and 8.
Yeah.
And now there's something I'd like to expand on a little bit here that Dr. Petrosha was talking about. You said, you know, that this wasn't, my situation wasn't the norm. Well, you would be surprised at how normal it is. And we have a huge group that's fighting DHS right now. And we're getting some laws changed. Mm-hmm. We're trying to convince Governor Branstad to do an investigation of DHS. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. We asked him, we went up to the Capitol a few weeks ago, the ones that we all had our stories, and we put them in a document and gave it to him and asked him to investigate our cases specifically, because we knew that they were wrong and that they should have never done what they done.
Well, here's let me.
What would be some of the changes that you're going to be requesting that go on? I mean, what are specifically some of the law changes that you think should happen?
There's 2 bills in right now. One of them is for a mini Miranda.
Okay.
And that is to Mirandize the parent when they come to the house, because, you know, parents, they don't know. They don't know their rights, and they don't know how to deal with DHS. And so they just say anything, and then DHS uses it against them. Mm-hmm. You know, they might say, oh, I smoked pot 10 years ago. Okay, now
you're a pot smoker.
Exactly.
Right.
You know, they don't know by admitting things that they used to do, it's going to get them in deep trouble.
And all they're trying to do is be honest trying to work out and resolve the situation. And that's not the
Exactly.
goal of the DHS.
Well, and I will say that you have everybody on the side of the state talking about you need to be honest and you need to be forthright and you need to be open, especially with your therapist, because then you can't get the help you need. As one of my colleagues loves to say, junk in, junk out, right? Well, then the minute you are, I have a client right now who graduated treatment, relapsed by going out and getting drunk one night when she didn't have her kids with her. Now that's bad if you're an addict. You can't do things like that necessarily if you have been diagnosed as a drug addict. She went out and she got drunk and then told when she was confronted, she fessed up to it, went and got a new substance abuse eval done, said, I think this is kind of dumb. All I did was get drunk. I haven't touched all those other drugs that I used to do ever since this case opened. And because she was honest and said, I think this is stupid, well, you're not taking your recovery seriously, therefore you're still a safety concern. So, and I threw that back I was able to kind of seize on that. But I guess it's a mini Miranda's, that's an interesting concept. And I wonder what exactly would be accomplished, because I assume that you mean saying things like the right to remain silent would be the big one, right? What do you think would be accomplished by not talking to the CPA worker or to the DHS worker? Because FSRP, and this should also be noted, the family services provider, resources provider, those are always contracted by other organizations.
Yes.
They're not actual DHS employees.
That's right. So let's let Jeannie answer this right after the break. We'll be back. Thanks for listening to us tonight. We're with special guest Jeannie Munson. You're listening to Doc and Lefty on webcast1live.com. We'll be back right after the break.
Bertroche and Associates will provide you with a friendly, caring, and confidential place to find help for mental health concerns. We are ready for your call. We are proud to work with military personnel and their families. Our doctor, Dr. J. Patrick Bertroche, provides a full range of psychiatric services for children, adolescents, and adults in a forthright and informative manner while maintaining a casual, comfortable, and relaxed atmosphere. Our licensed mental health therapists provide individual counseling to children, adolescents, and adults, including couples and marital counseling. Visit our website at bertrocheandassociates.com for more information or call 515-334-9484. Our offices are located at 5525 Meredith Drive in Des Moines, just east of Skate North off Merle Hay Road. Isn't it time to talk to someone? Take care of yourself and your family. Contact Bertroche and Associates.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. We're rapidly running out of time, and I was telling Doc and Jeannie at the break, I could talk about this subject for just hours and hours, but we don't have that much time left. So we're here with Jeannie Munson, who is a part of a group. What does your group have a name?
We do have. I have a Facebook page. It's Protest Iowa DHS.
Okay.
And we also have another Facebook page that is to help parents fight DHS and know what's going on, so they'll know how to react to DHS. And that's called Fight Iowa DHS CPS.
Okay. So before we broke for a word from our sponsor, I'd asked what you thought would be accomplished by asserting a right to remain silent with respect to DHS, and I have a sort of more academic idea about that, but how you think that would help?
Well, because that would give them time to get an attorney and get representation.
Okay.
And then also...
And that's very important.
Yeah, because they need to know. These parents need to know what they can and can't do before they ever get involved with DHS, because DHS is going to turn everything around on them, and they're going to say, we're taking your kids, and that's that. And another thing, too, there's another bill that we have, and it's guardianship versus China.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason we want this is because at one point... the county attorney over the juvenile office was working on the guardianship versus China, and he cut China's by 50%. And not only does that save the taxpayers a lot of money, but it keeps children with families.
Explain the difference. What do you mean by that?
Okay, China is the child in need of assistance, which is the court steps in. The state becomes the parent.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, guardianship means that the family member can come in and take guardianship of the child, and there will be no China.
Okay, well we have that, though.
Right, but nobody knows that, and nobody knows it. And this way, if it's a law, it gives you a standing.
Well, part of the problem is it's not like these people plan this to happen. I mean, usually when DHS literally swoops in, they're just about as bad as the IRS. They're just about as bad as the Gestapo. They come storming in. Half the time they have police with them, and they sweep these kids out, and they have absolutely no idea what's going on. So they sit down at that time, explain what is going on, and these people who have just suffered an emotional trauma second only to the death of their child or maybe divorce are sitting here trying to do what they're supposed to do. Now, this is completely unofficial. What happens half the time is the ones that are truly scummy will sit there and play the game and understand that the game is going on. Other people are like, well, hey, what's going on? They're mad because they get their kids yanked. Now they're behind the 8 ball. And I think that there needs to be a different, like Jeannie said, there has to be a different, process to go through instead of just sweeping in, yanking the kids out, and then just going, good luck to you. Because most of these people don't understand that as soon as those kids are removed, you need an attorney. And that's all there is to it. Most of these people don't understand it. The little mini Miranda idea is a terrific idea. So that you can say, listen, whatever's going to be said is going to be held against you. Go get an attorney.
Well, like I said, I could talk about this forever. And the biggest problem that I have with the mini Miranda idea, not necessarily as a policy position, but just it's not sound constitutionally, in my opinion. Number one, because you're not being arrested. And so you don't necessarily have
worse. I'd rather be arrested than have my kid taken.
You don't necessarily have a Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination in this kind of process, and that's a Supreme Court issue. The second thing, though, the major thing that I would like to see, and this is more of a court discretion idea, is that it seems to me that judges put unbelievable amount of weight behind a DHS social worker recommendation. I know, I've talked to several attorneys, several colleagues of mine that have had the same thought, where I had a licensed therapist, the person that DHS wanted my guy to go to, and tell me in a letter, and that I tried to introduce and wasn't able to for various other reasons, that 12 years ago he had been discharged other than honorable from the Navy for beating up his first wife. Okay, and he did that, and he admitted to that, and they talked about that. But then he didn't bring it up in this new round of mental health eval, and so the big characterization at court was, well, you lied. You would have had to have some sort of treatment, and the therapist said, no, it was 10 years ago. He's a different person. It wouldn't have been, you know all about this. You wouldn't, he wouldn't have gotten any benefit from any sort of treatment. We just kind of talked a little bit about his anger issues, which he's already seeing somebody for. Didn't matter. Follow the DHS worker recommendation. And so I feel that discretion, I think, is disproportionate.
Well, and I agree 100% because a lot of these DHS workers really aren't trained.
No.
They aren't trained for this.
They're not therapists.
I mean, they come out social work, half of and I know most of these people aren't LISWs. They're just, a bachelor in social work.
Yep.
And, you're letting the lowest rung educated with the least experience determine what's going on here. Now, we're going to end the discussion about this because there's a couple things I want to address before the end of this show. And I want to thank Jeannie Munson for hustling down here from Altoona, Iowa at the last minute.
Thank you very
much.
Come
on. We appreciate what you've come in and said. I like a lot of the ideas. Our Lefty and I will develop an argument about the mini Miranda thing because I think if you're essentially going to have your children taken, you should be at least advised, shut the hell up.
Exactly.
And then
I don't know.
And then two, give us the name of your Facebook page again. Oh, is it Protest Iowa DHS?
Correct.
On Facebook. So you can get a hold of her there. She usually has a lot of good information clicking through. Now, there's a couple of things going on nationally I want to talk about just briefly. And as I usually do when Lefty starts talking, I try to tune him out. But in this case,
it's too bad. That's why I'm.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
That's why I know more than you.
Yeah.
That's
that's the why I know more than you because I'm actually, trying to educate myself. Anyway,
right.
On the front page of Fox News, and this is a riot, talking about minimum wage, and there's a picture of Obama. It's a good picture, and right next to him is a picture of this guy holding up this sign that says, "We can't survive on $8.25 an hour." That is typical because minimum wage is not $8.25 an hour. It's $7.25 an hour. So they can't even get their own protest and signs right. Now, here's the serious part I wanted to talk about. Ukraine is in a world of hurt. This protest has been going on 3 months. It's not going to stop. The last time they had protests like this was over the very same president, over the very same issues. And, you know, a lot of the political leaders got killed. A lot of Ukrainians got killed. So far, there's been 20 deaths associated with these protests. And all they really want is for Ukraine to go back swinging towards the EU, just like they've always wanted. Now, it's not a universal feeling, but it's a majority feeling. One of the things that people don't know, the Berkut is they might know by now, is the secret police. They have taken station on top of all the buildings around the Maidan, which is the Independence Square. And they randomly shoot down into the crowds. I have seen videos of this. My friends have told me about this going on over there. They are assassinating people right and left. Anybody that speaks out is in danger. The problem really comes down to the people are speaking and they're not backing away. This is what happens when you take freedom away. Now, Yanukovych did it. I mean, he's a scum. I mean, he's a convicted murderer. He's received at least $1 billion from Russia to swing back towards them. Putin just offered him another $2 billion to try to get this under control. The bottom line is the man is scum and needs to go. I think what needs to happen is they need to reintroduce the Constitution that they had introduced in 2004 because Yanukovych has stripped that entire thing. So all the freedoms that they had before are now gone. This, I believe, is the first shots fired in the revolution. I know that a lot of my friends over there have picked up weapons, have picked up guns, and are willing to go to the street to fight. So tonight I want everybody to pray for peace in Ukraine because it's a great country and it's just sad that they have this kind of leadership. Now, I always hate ending on a bummer note, but that's really what's going on over in Ukraine, and it's going to have worldwide impact. It's going to impact the Russians. It's going to impact the Europeans. It's going to impact us. Anyway, thanks everybody for tuning in. You got any gigs coming up this week?
Got a show on the west side on the 28th, and I'm playing a gig with a buddy of mine in March over in North Liberty.
Or North Liberty, Iowa?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Where are you playing there?
I can't remember the name of the place. I can't remember any names today, but
it can't be that many places.
It's a newish restaurant that wasn't there when I lived over there. But I've eaten there once, and it's more of an Irish pub kind of deal.
Oh, just right up your alley.
Yeah,
good
I love
folk
it.
Singing.
I love it.
And all that stuff. So, all right. Well, we want to thank Jeannie Munson for coming in. Well, as always, we want to thank Frank, who for the most part does a pretty good job. So thanks everybody. We'll be back next week from 6:30 to 7:30 p.m. Any particular topics you want to talk about next week?
Next week, we're going to talk about why everything you say is wrong and why everything I say is correct. I'm so correct.
Stay tuned for that battle next week.
I'm so partisan, I don't even say the word right anymore. Good night, everybody.
Hi, I'm Representative Tom Shaw, and I love these guys. Both of them.
Love these guys. Get over here. Get over here. Love both of them.